Let's do an example of input validation and the try-catch block. So here's our exercise. We're going to write a Java program to prompt the user to enter an integer between 100 and 199. We're going to output an error message if the user fails to comply. We're going to protect the program from non-numeric data using try-catch. We're going to repeat this process until the user enters quit, case insensitive, and then once the user's finished, we'll output the sum of the numbers and the count of how many numbers were entered. Okay, so we've got a couple of things going on here. And we're going to use the function getInt and range that implements the proper input validation. So we're going to have a while loop. We're going to have an input sentinel, and we're going to have some numeric inputs. Okay, so let's get started. So let's go to Visual Studio Code. Let's go ahead and open a folder. We'll create a new folder for our work in week 10, and we'll just call this input validation. We'll hit create, and then we'll just open that. We'll go ahead and add a new, so our folder's open, we'll go ahead and add a new file. We'll call it InputValidation.java using appropriate naming techniques, upper camel case for file names and class names. Let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, and then we need our main. Okay, so we're going to need a scanner. So let's go ahead and do that. Scanner equals new scanner system.in. We'll use the IntelliSense. Let's see, Java's not quite initialized yet. We're going to come back and use IntelliSense to, yeah, there we go. Quick fix, import the scanner. Okay, so took a minute for Java to finish initializing, which is why the quick fix wasn't there, but it's there now. Okay, so we have the scanner. So now we want to implement a while loop with a sentinel value. So let's say, let's do keep going equals true. We're going to do while keep going. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to implement the loop where we just prompt for a number and then ask if you have more to keep going, and if you enter quit, then it will stop. So okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, so here we'll have a method here that says get the integer. I'm just going to put a note there to myself because I'm going to come back and do that. I want to do the part where we ask if you want to quit first. So I'm just going to say system.out.println enter quit to finish or any other value to continue. So I'm kind of writing the program in reverse order here. So let's go ahead and do print, and then we'll just enter it on the same method. We'll say string input equals scanner.next line. We'll say if input dot equals ignore case quit, then we'll say keep going equals false. Okay, you need to spell that right. Okay, and then we're done. So this is just going to keep prompting us. We haven't actually collected the integer yet. What we did was we wrote the outer while loop, and we implemented the sentinel value to exit. So let's go ahead and test that to make sure it works. So the program shouldn't do anything now. It should just keep looping until we enter quit in any kind of case format. Okay, so that works. So now let's go ahead and get the integer. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to say int value equals get int in range. Again, I'm writing the signature for the function before I actually implement the function, just so that it makes sense to me from an implementation standpoint. So I'm going to pass the scanner. Then I'm going to pass a prompt. Please enter an integer between 100 and 199. Let's go ahead and let's put a new line in that, just so there's some some separation, and then we're going to use a range. We're going to have 100 and 199 as the parameter. So this will be get in and range. It's the scanner. Here's our prompt, and here's the minimum and the maximum value. Okay. All right, so that is what I want. So now let's go ahead and implement the method. Remember, the method goes inside the input validation class, but not inside the main. So I want to start a new line here after the main is closed. I'm just going to start a new line here. Public static. It's going to be an int return value. It's not void, it's int because I'm going to return a value, and it's going to be called get int in range. It's going to take a scanner. It's going to take a string as a prompt. It's going to take an int as a min. It's going to take an int as the max. Okay. All right, so now it's highlighted red because I'm not returning a value. If we hover over that, we can see this method must return a result of type int. So that's the error I'm getting because I just haven't finished yet. So it's okay that is there. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to be in an input validation loop, which means we're just going to have a while true. Then inside our loop, we're going to issue the prompt. Whatever prompt was passed in as an argument. Then we're going to do a read, but we're going to read as a string because remember, we're protecting our program against invalid numeric entries. So we're going to do string value equals scanner.nextLine. Then we're going to do a try block, and we're going to use the parse method. So we're going to say try. Now in our try block, we're going to say int value int equals integer dot parse int value. Okay. If that works, then value int will be a valid integer. If that doesn't work, if the value is not parsable, then I'm going to get an error message. Okay, I'm going to get an exception. So what I want to do is I want to catch number format exception. We'll just call it E. And in here, then I'll put an output that says system.out.println. That is not valid. That is not a valid integer. Okay. Okay, so if this is correct, then I'm just going to return value int. Okay. All right, now I've only done part of the input validation here. I did the input validation to protect against invalid numeric. I haven't done the range check yet, but let's go ahead and test this just to make sure we're doing it right. Please enter an integer between 100 and 199. So if I enter invalid numeric, it should say that is not a valid integer. I misspelled valid, so we'll fix that. If I enter a valid integer, then it's just going to say enter quit or press any other key to continue. Okay, it's not quite right because I haven't done the input validation yet. So we need to do that. So we'll say quit. Okay, so let's fix the spelling mistake, valid. Okay, so now what I need to do is after I confirm that it's a valid integer, I need to do a range check here. If value int greater than or equal to min, and value int less than or equal to max. If that's true, then I want to do the return. If it's false, then what I want to do is I want to print an error message. You must enter a value between min and max. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll do concatenation here. Plus min max. Okay. I could also use an interpolation there using printf, but we'll use this print line for now in this example. Okay, so let's test that and see if it works. Enter between 100 and 199 and 199. So if I enter 99, it says must be between 100. If I enter 100, then it works. If I enter 200, it should fail, but for 199, it should work. Okay. All right, so that's working. So now we need to, so now our input validation is correct. This get int and range, this is a very good function. You're going to probably want to keep this around because you're probably going to want to use it in future programs that you have. And we'll also be writing a get double in range. We're going to want one of those probably as well. You could use this to get an integer in range. You could use to get positive if you set the min as 0 and the max as the maximum integer, then you could get a positive integer only. You could do the same with negative if you reverse those. So this is a very useful function for getting all sorts of input from the user. Okay, so now let's we have the last thing we have to do is we have to keep track of the number of things we entered, and we want to enter the total. So it said once users finished, output the sum of the numbers and the count of how many numbers were entered. Okay, so in order to keep track of the count, we just need to initialize a counter. And then every time we get a value back, we're just going to say count plus plus. So that would be our count. Okay, we're also going to want to implement a sum. And then every time we get a valid number, we'll just say sum plus equals value. Okay, so now those are added up. Then right at the end, we can say, after the while loop is over, you entered, let's put a new line in there. You entered count integers that add up to, okay. Okay. All right, let's see if that works. Let's run that. Please enter an integer between 100 and 199. Let's see, we're still good with our range check. Okay, we're getting the appropriate error messages. So if I enter 103, keep going. If I enter 189, if I enter 135, oh, 135, quit. Then I have 3 integers add up to 427. Okay, all right, done. So that's our example of using an input validation loop to get an integer within a range and protecting against invalid numeric entry using a try-catch block.